Hi chameleons, welcome back to another instalment of the Danger Gang. Now we were in October and it was Halloween, and we have just found out that the pumpkins that Susie's parents are growing we were buried on the day of the storm. If that storm had anything to do with these pumpkins, then we were in for something freaky. Well, I think for the first time ever we have a tie, said Piers Snorgum, looking at the two equally enormous pumpkins. You are joint winners and can share the freaky pumpkin trophy. Hold on just a tick, screeched Mrs. Prune. My pumpkin is clearly the biggest. Don't be daft, Mr. Prune added. Your silly little pumpkin is nowhere near as big as mine. Then Mrs. Prune reached into her gardening utility belt and unclipped a bottle of spray which could be seen was full up with murky green liquid labelled rainwater. What's that? Mr. Prune asked. This is water I collected from the storm on the night my pumpkin was planted, said Mrs. Prune. And what are you doing with that? Mr. Prune asked, sounding a little nervous. I don't think mine has finished growing yet, Mrs. Prune screeched. And with that, she went to spray her pumpkin with some freaky storm water. Oh, no, you didn't. That's cheating, cried Mr. Prune as he lunged for the bottle. He tugged it his way, and then his wife pulled it that way, this way, that way. It was a tug of war. I can't watch this, Susie said miserably, and she took a large bite from another slice of pumpkin pie. And at that moment, the spray bottle full of storm water couldn't be taken to be pulled any longer. Pop! It snapped open and pinged out of Susie's mum's and dad's hands. It flew through the air, soaking poor Susie with murky water instead. Susie gasped as water dripped from her hair and clothes. I could tell this was the final straw. That's enough, she screamed. I've had it with you two and this stupid competition. As Susie shouted, I couldn't help but notice the green sparks like tiny bolts of lightning that zapped around her body. I whispered to myself, it's danger time. And I was right. You spend so much time watching your silly little pumpkins grow that you don't even notice that I grew a whole year, Susie went on. Oh, Susie Pie, your birthday, Mrs. Prune gasped. You forgot her birthday? Asked Mr. Prune, looking at his wife in horror. You did too, Dad, bellowed Susie. Did I? He asked. But while Susie's mum and dad had failed to remember her growing another year older, I definitely not failed to notice that she seemed to be growing now, right before our eyes. Yes, you read that correctly. Susie was growing. Susie, you're getting bigger, Ronnie shouted, and your skin's turning orange, added Katie. And it was. Susie wasn't just plumping up like someone was inflating her with a bike pump. She was actually turning orange. Bigger and bigger, rounder and rounder, until she was as big as her mum and dad's prize-winning pumpkins, and the same colour too. My Susie Pie, Mr. Prune cried. You're a pumpkin, her mum screamed as Susie's round orange face poked out the top of an even rounder, more orange body. The whole town started screaming and running for their lives. Pumpkin monster, they cried. Killer super squash, they yelled. Susie, the now giant pumpkin, lifted up one of her enormous pumpkin feet and took a stomping pumpkin step forward. Boom! The ground shook. It was like watching one of those old films when Godzilla fights those awesome giant monsters in the middle of the city. If Godzilla had a fight Pumpkin Susie, I'm not sure who would win. Susie Pie, we can fix you, Mr. Prune cried. Yes, your dad is brilliant at making pumpkins small, Mrs. Prune said. Oi! Well, you are, she replied. Stop arguing about pumpkins, Susie bellowed, and with that she lifted up her heavy orange foot and brought it crashing down on top of Mum's prize-winning pumpkin. Splat. The pumpkin was pulverised and chunks of orange flesh splattered out over the watching chaotic crowd. Pa ha ha, Mr. Prune cracked at the sight. Looks like that trophy is all mine this year. But giant pumpkin Susie had different plans. She lifted up the other round orange foot and smashed her dad's pumpkin to bits. Smash. Now, I'm not sure exactly how it happened next, but the moment those pumpkins were smashed open, it was almost as if a spell had been broken. Just like when a hypnotic snaps its finger and wakes somebody up who's been prancing around like a chicken for moments before, Mr. and Mrs. Prune instantly changed. Oh, my Susie Pie, said Mrs. Prune. Big girl, sobbed Mr. Prune. They both wrapped their arms around their little big girl's legs and cried and cried and cried. And as the teardrops trickled down their cheeks and onto the orange flesh of the pumpkin girl, some sort of magic transformation began. Instead of watering a plant to make it grow, their tears were making Susie shrink. Down, down, down she went, getting smaller and smaller, and less orange, until Susie was Susie again. Oh, Susie Pie, Mr. and Mrs. Prune cheered. Susie was back, but now we had another problem, a bigger problem. Everyone in Freaky had just seen a pumpkin Susie stomping around the town like a monster in one of those old movies. There's no way we were going to be able to keep this little secret within our danger gang, and not only that, Piers Snorgan and his TV crew were here. This was going to go viral. She's done for, Charlie whispered as the danger gang reconvened. She'll be taken away for all sorts of scientific testing for sure, said Molly. Or locked up for being a danger to society, said Ronnie. As Piers Snorgan and his crew rushed over to her, we all thought this might be the last we'd see of our friend Susie Prune. But Piers suddenly burst into hysterical laughing, clapping and cheering wildly. Young lady, that was the best Halloween costume I have ever seen, he roared. I don't know how on earth you made it, but what a treat it was, or a trick. The stunned crowd, who had been screaming in terror moments before, suddenly erupted into applause. I looked around at the danger gang and we all joined in cheering. Whoopee, what a costume, we cried. Look fake to me. Yeah, you should see the zip. Don't believe it for a second. I think everyone here can safely say that you, Susie Prune, are the biggest pumpkin any of us had ever seen. Piers Snorgan chuckled as he pinned the first place rosette on her jumper. And there's no way a Halloween costume like that was made without the help of your mum and dad. So I suppose the joint winners of this year's Freaky Pumpkin Prize are Mr. and Mrs. Prune. I felt the danger gang breathe a sigh of relief, and we said nothing else about it until we were safely within the wooden walls of my treehouse later that evening. So that was Freaky Halloween, but to be honest, I expected nothing less. Happy trick or treat, Frankie. P.S. Photographic evidence. Take a look at the picture of Mr. and Mrs. Prune with their winning entry, Susie. Nothing unusual. Count on people, then count the shadows. Someone else was there. So in that picture, you can see that we have got Mum and Dad, Susie, but the extra shadow over here. It's getting freakier by the second. Danny, I'm in trouble. Something freakishly freaky has happened, and I don't think I'm going to make it. This is my final letter, my last goodbye, and there's something you need to know. There's no easy way to say this, but I love you, Danny. I knew you were the one for me since the day we first met and caught you eating that bogey out of the back of the classroom. I was in love with you at first bite. Don't try to save me, and whatever you do, don't come to Freaky. It's too dangerous here. Maybe even for the danger gang. Frankie. Over and out. Well, that was a little bit weird how to end our chapter. And I have still got pages left, so tune in next week to find out what happens to Frankie. Bye, guys.